our old mate Anne Ali, more pundit than politician. And when you're a pundit, take it from me, sometimes, you know, you're just making a point, you're on a roll to a point, and then ever so slightly you realise I might have gone a little bit too far, hit reverse, go back a little bit. Only problem is she's not a pundit, she's a politician. She's somebody who at one point wanted to be part of a government. She's somebody who is, of course, writing the laws of this country, and she can't tell the difference between Australia being in recession or not in recession. She was on with Tom Connell before.
What about the fact that we are now, our economy is in a recession, or it looks like it's going into a recession? How do we know what the economy is going to look like in 2024 and whether or not these are affordable? I'd want a bit more information about exactly how this is going to impact on the people that I represent before I support future tax cuts.
Oh, she's your mate, isn't she, Pauline? Doesn't know the difference between whether in a recession, not in a recession. Who cares? Just keep talking.
Paul, she's no mate of mine.
I know.
Paul, she's no mate of mine. Okay? So anyway, let's just get that quite clear. She's made her comments on the whole issue about the whole tax cuts, and I've made my comments about the tax cuts as well, the personal tax cuts that they want to actually bring in, and I made my comments that I want to see, Paul, what needs to be addressed, and I've travelled the country quite extensively, and I think that if we don't bring down electricity prices, which is killing businesses, not only that, it's affecting everyday mums and dads and pensioners who can't afford the escalating electricity prices. The personal tax cuts, which we passed in the Parliament to give them relief, you know, that just over $500 a year, that's actually passed. To go on and look at another $158 billion, I have concerns over it, and it is further down the track, and that's why I knocked back the corporate tax cuts of over $50 million a year turnover, because I believed that we couldn't afford more than that, because the way I don't know the economy, and I was concerned if Labor ended up running this country. They are bad economic managers, and I didn't trust them to be at holding the reins of this of the economic management of this country. I've said, look, unless we bring down electricity prices in the country, I see businesses folding, and it's the impact that it's having on pensioners and those welfare recipients that can't afford increasing prices. To actually give the tax cut now to working Australians, because that's who it's affecting, it's basically a sugar hit. We need to look at putting in infrastructure in train by infrastructure projects that is going to lower electricity prices, water security and assurances for ever-increasing population that we have. So I have my own reasons, and I want to talk to the government about it. But I'm yet to hear from Mathias Cormann. I've had no phone call from him.
Still.
He's in negotiations with the Labor Party, not me. I'm one of the crossbenchers. You know, Paul, I don't think he's got the guts to pick up the phone and actually talk to me. And to turn around and say that he's negotiating with crossbenchers is not the truth, because he's not negotiating with me.
Well, I mean, we all know how this works, where there are 6 crossbenchers. If 3 or more vote against, it's dead, but you need 4 to get anything done. Pretty obvious. They need your vote to get something done. Why wouldn't they have called you yet?
You know what I think it is? Because they knew they did the wrong thing by myself and the One Nation Party and the voters for One Nation by telling people to actually preference One Nation below Labor. That's why, because, Paul, they were determined to get rid of me out of the Senate because I didn't pass their corporate tax cuts that I did not believe was in the best interest for the people of this country, over 50 million turnover. And I was the one who got it up to 50 million turnover. They were only after 10 million. So, you know, I look at things what I think is right for the country, and because they actually worked with Clive Palmer in their grubby deals, thinking that they would destroy me and get rid of me out of the Senate, they wouldn't need to rely on me for my vote. So this is all political grubby deals that have been done. But I will make my decisions based on, I think, what is right for the country, right for the future generations, and that's where I'll make it. But he hasn't had the guts, neither has the Prime Minister, to actually talk to me or pick up the phone and discuss these issues with me. I'm not going away. I will be on the floor of Parliament on the 2nd of July, so get used to it, because I'm there for the next 3 years and Malcolm Roberts is there for the next 6.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance you'll be back for 6 after that as well. I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon, and I'm more than happy with that. Stephen, you know how the Senate works. You know that it's important to be talking to everyone on the just-in-case factor. I think it's weird that the phone hasn't been picked up yet. Prime Minister's on holidays this week, but what do you think?
No, look, I'm quite surprised by what Pauline says there, that Mathias, who is one of the better of the government ministers, particularly in trying to pass legislation through the Senate, he is actually their best negotiator. So I'm actually quite surprised Mathias hasn't picked up the phone to Pauline yet, quite genuinely. That's not normally his form guide. He's normally better than that, but maybe he thinks he's got a better chance of passing the legislation with others, though I'm not sure who the others can be without Pauline for him. But on the first point that you raised around the economy, Paul, I think it's important that some facts are actually available to your viewers. The last set of GDP figures demonstrated categorically that this economy is in serious trouble. The traditional measure of whether or not we're in a recession or not is negative 2 quarters of GDP growth or shrinkage. That is the traditional. But there is also another measure. There is also another measure that's described as GDP growth per capita. And for the
Which one did you use in government?
No, I'm just making the point because the GDP at the moment is bolstered by iron ore prices, and that's fantastic for the government on tax, and it's fantastic for the shareholders. It's not fantastic for people. People are what comes into per capita, you know, per capita people. And what you're seeing is the economy is barely growing, and for the first time in 36 years, GDP per capita, that's for people, has gone backwards in 3 consecutive quarters. And the growth rates, in seasonally adjusted terms, the economy grew just 1.8% in the past 12 months and a mere 1.7% in trend terms, the slowest growth in 2009. So you might want to make fun of Anne Arley.
I think you know what you're talking about and she doesn't.
The economy is in the toilet.